Have you ever felt like you were in control of everything, until life knocks you down in an unlikely place? That's what happened to Henrique Mendes, a respected heart surgeon. A widower and single father, he was used to saving lives in operating rooms. But on that ordinary Saturday, in a crowded shopping mall, everything he knew fell apart when his 4-year-old daughter cried. There was no scalpel or white coat that could solve that. What he didn't expect was that his salvation would come from someone society tends to overlook, Fernanda Costa, a cleaning lady. As everyone passed by, she stopped. With empathy and active listening, she bent down, not only to comfort the girl, but to lovingly sew together what was torn inside that father. What started out as a broken doll became a symbolic repair of the soul. In this text, you will delve into a story that could be yours or someone close to you. We will talk about losses, judgments, reconnections, and the courage to make emotional choices in a world that values status more than simplicity. And I promise you, when you get to the end, you will no longer look at the people who clean the floor under your feet in the same way. Henrique Mendes was one of those men who inspired automatic respect, a renowned heart surgeon, steady hands, quick decisions. But all it took was one afternoon at the mall with his daughter Isabella for the solid ground of his reputation to turn to quicksand. A widower and single father, he found himself constantly fighting emotional battles for which no scalpel was suitable. And in that crowded hallway, faced with a child's crisis caused by a broken doll, all his professional training was useless. Isabella, at 4 years old, threw herself on the floor in tears, clutching the remains of her Luna doll. And there, in that unlikely setting, Henrique's heart, accustomed to beating with clinical precision, stumbled. It was more than a childish tantrum. It was the absence of his mother, the unfulfilled need, the grief choked up in the form of tears. He tried to maintain his composure, but he felt as broken as Luna. What do you do when your own child becomes an indecipherable enigma? The truth is that many single parents live this silent dilemma. They may be brilliant professionals, but when emotion demands presence and not solution, the ground disappears. Henrique, like so many others, was lost not because of a lack of love, but because he did not know how to translate it beyond technical logic. Isabella's crisis was not just hers, it was his too. And there began a story that would not be resolved with medical knowledge, but with empathy, listening, and an unexpected rediscovery of simplicity. While Henrique was wallowing in his silent frustration, someone no one expected appeared. Fernanda Costa, dressed in the blue uniform of the mall cleaning team, approached with light but firm steps. She didn't ask if she could help. She acted. With a sweet voice and a look that said, "I see you," she knelt down next to Isabella as if she already knew her. And there, in the middle of the commotion, she applied what you don't learn at university: pure empathy. Without manuals, without formulas, just by actively listening and being present, Fernanda gained the child's trust in minutes. She picked up the pieces of the Luna doll, examined them as if she were a delicate patient, and, with an almost magical touch, cured the broken toy. For Isabella, it was a miracle. For Henrique, it was a practical lesson in humanity. Fernanda didn't just fix the doll, she restored peace between father and daughter. All of this with what society calls simple common sense. It became clear that titles and status do not guarantee sensitivity. While the surgeon was immersed in his rational logic, the cleaning lady acted with her heart. The contrast was not only in their uniforms, but in their inner world. And curiously, it was Fernanda who brought light to that father in emotional collapse. She did not come in to solve problems. She came in to welcome. And this seemingly small gesture would be the first spark of an unlikely connection. After the crisis, silence came. One of those good silences that calms the atmosphere and the thoughts. Henrique, still surprised by the way Fernanda had handled everything, watched Isabella smile again, hugging her doll Luna as if nothing had happened. That was when the little girl asked for ice cream, and this time her father didn't have the courage to say no. Between his daughter's excited chocolate and Fernanda's gentle smile, something new was born, a silent but deep emotional connection. Sitting at a table in the food court, the three of them looked like an improvised family. The doctor was still disconcerted, the cleaning lady was relaxed, and the child in the middle was happier than he had been in a long time. While they ate ice cream, they talked about simple things, favorite flavors, childhood, little memories. But there, in the midst of that simplicity, there was something powerful happening, an emotional opening that Henrique no longer knew how to experience. It was at that moment, between spoonfuls of ice cream and shy glances, that Henrique began to rethink his own loneliness. He realized that maybe, just maybe, he was shielding himself too much, stuck in the armor of routine and reputation. Fernanda, with her naturalness, had broken through that shell effortlessly just by being who she was. And Isabella, with her renewed joy, sealed it all with the wisdom of someone who doesn't yet understand social class, but understands true affection. The following Saturday, Henrique did something he hadn't done in a long time. He invited someone over for dinner, not a fellow doctor, nor a high society acquaintance, but Fernanda, the woman who had transformed a chaotic moment into sweetness and reconnection. When she arrived, she felt out of place. The building had a uniformed doorman, a marble lobby and mirrored elevators, a world away from hers. But as soon as she walked through the door of the apartment, the mood changed. Isabella ran to hug her with open joy. During dinner, the disparity between the two worlds became clear. The table, set with fine silverware, contrasted with Fernanda's calloused hands, accustomed to scrubbing floors. But what really hurt, for both of them, was realizing that this difference was more about status and appearance than anything else. Henrique tried to act naturally, but he found himself asking things like, "Does she feel comfortable here? What would my friends think of this?" The ghost of social approval haunted every gesture. And then came the cruelest counterpoint, the comment from Dr. Ricardo, Henrique's old friend. When she found out that he was interested in a cleaning lady, she reacted with coldness disguised as care. She claimed to be thinking about her daughter's well-being, her reputation, and her social class. That sparked a powerful internal conflict in Henrique. Could it be that the fear of being judged by others still spoke louder than the chance to experience genuine love? Fernanda had already shown that true connections don't care about zip codes. Isabella, with her 4 years of experience and keen sensitivity, saw what adults complicated. When she realized that Fernanda no longer came back as often, her concern turned into direct questions, the kind that would dismantle any well-intentioned adult. "Why did you lie, Daddy?" Or, "You're not busy, you're sad." Henrique, accustomed to giving accurate diagnoses, now faced the most precise emotional analysis coming from his daughter. And there was no anesthesia for that. The girl couldn't explain what social inequality was, but she felt Fernanda's absence intensely. More than liking her cleaning lady, she saw in her a welcoming figure, something that couldn't be bought with expensive toys or fancy outings. In the simple and relentless logic of children, if someone does us good, why push them away? And that's when Henrique understood. His daughter was his moral compass, pointing the way to what really mattered. When Isabella's little voice said, with the certainty of someone who carries the truth in her arms, "You're hurting yourself too," Henrique broke down inside. He realized that by trying to protect his reputation, he was hurting not only Fernanda, but his daughter's happiness, and his own as well. It was this innocent and accurate confrontation that put him before the most important choice of his life, to follow society's invisible rules, or finally to listen to a child's heart. Henry tried to convince himself that moving away was the right thing to do. He made excuses for Isabella, avoided them all, and threw himself into work as a way of escaping. But inside, he was at war. Fernanda's absence made the house quieter and the days longer. That light, spontaneous energy she brought, which turned even the formal nanny into a museum piece, was now necessary. But acknowledging this meant admitting that fear still ruled him. As he washed the dishes, he looked at the expensive cutlery and felt an emptiness that was hard to describe. He remembered Fernanda's lasagna, the children's laughter, the uncomplicated conversation on the balcony. It was as if he had lived a weekend in a world where everything made sense, but soon he found himself surrounded by the walls of his elegant apartment with designer furniture, but no soul. The material comfort that had always protected him now seemed like a golden prison. Even without meaning to, Ricardo's words kept echoing. Reputation, status, social class. All of that weighed heavily. But it was Isabella's sad look when she asked about Aunt Fernanda that really hurt. Henrique understood that he was experiencing an internal conflict between what was expected of a respectable widowed doctor and what he truly wanted as a man, as a father, as a human being. The reflection corroded him, but it also prepared him for something greater that was to come. Driven by Isabella's insistence and genuine concern, Henrique made a decision that did not fit into his old code of conduct. He went after Fernanda in her neighborhood, Jardim Esperanza. The contrast was stark. Narrow streets, children playing on the asphalt, clothes hanging on the clothesline, small houses, and life pulsating in every corner. When he rang the doorbell, he felt out of place, almost invasive. But he was greeted with a surprised smile, a tight hug, and a lasagna in the oven. That modest and messy home had more warmth than all the marble in its penthouse. There, in that simple kitchen, Henrique discovered a new layer of Fernanda. He heard stories from the past, about the family sacrifice she had made when she gave up a scholarship to study teaching at university to raise her sister. He saw the diplomas of Julia, her younger sister, hanging on the wall as trophies of Fernanda's courage. And he understood, without needing any further explanation, that he was in the presence of someone with real greatness. Not the kind that is displayed in expensive suits, but that is lived with dignity and dedication. On the porch of his house, amidst the laughter of children and the late afternoon breeze, Henrique felt something being reborn. That moment had no filters, no need for external validation. It was just him, Fernanda, Isabella, and a feeling of completeness that he hadn't experienced in a long time. There, he finally understood that real happiness didn't come from status, but from sincere connections, and that an authentic life, the one worth living, sometimes begins exactly where you least expect it. After that lunch full of truths and affection, Henrique could no longer pretend. Sitting with Fernanda on the porch, with Isabella playing in the background, he finally said what had been eating him up inside. "You are the person I am falling in love with." It was not a rehearsed speech, nor a heroic gesture. It was a breath of honesty in a heart tired of hiding feelings. Fernanda, surprised, hesitated, but the truth is that she felt the same way too. She just didn't think there was room for it in such different worlds. What followed was not a fairy tale. It was a raw, real conversation where both exposed their fears, doubts, and the weight they felt when facing social approval. Henrique did not promise certainties, but he made a choice. He no longer wanted to hide behind status, the opinions of others, or the projections of a widowed doctor who needed to maintain a pose. He wanted to live an authentic life, with simple lasagna, real smiles, and genuine love. That same week, Fernanda had dinner with them again. Isabella ran around the house as if the world was finally back to normal, and Henrique, as he watched the scene, understood that starting over was not about forgetting the past, but about allowing himself to experience something new with courage. He chose love, not the formal kind, nor the convenient kind, but the kind that comes from an unlikely connection, that defies appearances and transforms entire lives. And it was there, among scattered toys and homemade dessert, that he finally felt whole again. How many times have you let fear guide your choices? How many real connections have been left behind because of status, appearance, or the old "what will people think"? The story of Henrique, Fernanda, and Isabella invites us to reflect on this and perhaps reconsider our own steps. Are you protecting yourself so much that you have forgotten to allow yourself to be happy? If today you feel like something is missing, that your relationships are cold or that the routine has numbed you, maybe it's time to look at what's simple. It could be a conversation, a reunion, a person you never imagined. What matters is not the setting, but the connection. What's stopping you from taking that first step? If this story touched you, leave your response here in the comments. Have you ever fallen in love with someone from a completely different world than you? What stopped you or made you move on? Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and follow more stories that touch the soul. We are just getting started.